There is a mineral that roughly half of all adults in the United States are not getting enough of, and it is involved in more than 300 different reactions inside your body. It helps regulate your heart rhythm, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your muscles, your nerves, and your sleep. And yet most people are walking around with a low-grade deficiency that they will never be tested for, and they are unknowingly making it worse with a single mistake every single morning. The mineral is magnesium. And the mistake, the one I am going to spend this entire video on, is taking the wrong form of it, at the wrong dose, at the wrong time, while assuming any magnesium supplement will do the job. Most people who decide to take magnesium go to the pharmacy, grab the cheapest bottle on the shelf, which is almost always magnesium oxide, swallow a pill with breakfast, notice nothing happen, and then conclude that magnesium does not work for them. But the problem was never magnesium. It was the form. Magnesium oxide is one of the most poorly absorbed forms of magnesium on the market, and in many cases it simply passes through your digestive system, which is why the most common complaint about it is a laxative effect rather than any health benefit. In this video, we are going to go through what magnesium actually does in your body after 50, why deficiency becomes so common at exactly this stage of life, the signs that your levels may be low, the specific mistake most people make when they try to fix it, and a clear, evidence-based approach to getting your magnesium right, including which forms to choose and which to avoid. Before we talk about supplements, you need to understand what magnesium does, because once you see the full picture, the consequences of deficiency become obvious. Magnesium is the fourth most abundant mineral in your body, and it is a cofactor in more than 300 enzyme systems. A cofactor is a helper molecule that enzymes need in order to do their work. Think of enzymes as tiny machines inside your cells, and magnesium as the battery that powers them. Without magnesium, those machines slow down or stop entirely. The most important job magnesium does is energy production. Every single cell in your body generates energy through a molecule called ATP, and ATP is only biologically active when it is bound to magnesium. No magnesium, no usable energy. That is the biochemical reason low magnesium feels like fatigue that rest does not fix. Magnesium also regulates the electrical activity of your nerves and muscles. It acts as a natural calcium channel blocker, which is a technical way of saying it helps your muscles relax after they contract. Calcium makes muscles contract. Magnesium makes them relax. When magnesium runs low, muscles stay tense, which is why cramping, twitching, and tightness are hallmark signs of deficiency. Your heart is a muscle, and it runs on the same calcium-magnesium balance, which is why magnesium is involved in maintaining a steady heart rhythm. Magnesium helps regulate blood pressure by relaxing the walls of your blood vessels. It supports insulin sensitivity, helping your cells respond properly to the hormone that manages your blood sugar. It is required for the production of serotonin, the neurotransmitter that supports mood and sleep. And it works alongside calcium and vitamin D to maintain bone density. In short, magnesium is not a niche mineral. It is a foundational one, and its absence touches nearly every system in your body. So why does deficiency become so common after 50? There are 4 reasons, and each one compounds the others. The first is intake. As people age, calorie needs tend to decline, so they eat less food overall, and if the foods they do eat are processed and nutrient poor, their magnesium intake drops with it. National surveys consistently show that a large portion of older adults consume less than the recommended amount of magnesium from food. The richest sources, things like pumpkin seeds, almonds, spinach, black beans, cashews, and dark chocolate, are not staples of the typical American diet, especially for people over 50 who may have been told to cut back on nuts for calories or who have trouble with digestion. The second reason is absorption. As we age, the digestive tract becomes less efficient at absorbing nutrients, and stomach acid production tends to decline, which affects how well minerals are extracted from food. Medications. Compound this. Proton pump inhibitors, the acid-reducing drugs taken by millions of people for heartburn and reflux, are well documented to reduce magnesium absorption over the long term. Water pills, which are prescribed for high blood pressure and fluid retention, increase the amount of magnesium your kidneys excrete. So people who are taking medications that deplete magnesium are often the same people who need it most. for their heart, for their blood pressure, for their muscles. The third reason is excretion. Your kidneys regulate magnesium levels, and with age, the kidneys become less efficient at conserving it, so more magnesium is lost in urine. Certain medications, especially water pills, accelerate this loss further. The fourth reason is that deficiency is rarely tested. Standard blood panels usually measure magnesium in the blood, but only about 1% of your body's magnesium is in the blood at any given time. The rest is stored in your bones and tissues. Blood magnesium can look normal while your tissues are depleted, which means routine testing routinely misses the problem. That is why so many people have symptoms of low magnesium, and their doctor tells them their levels are fine. So what does low magnesium actually feel like? The signs are common enough that most people dismiss them as aging, and that is exactly why they go unrecognized. The most classic sign is muscle cramping, especially at night, particularly in the calves, the kind of cramp that seizes your leg and wakes you from sleep. Twitching eyelids, restless legs, and a feeling of tightness in the muscles are all in the same family. The second cluster of signs involves sleep. Low magnesium is associated with difficulty falling asleep, waking through the night, and waking unrefreshed, because magnesium supports the relaxation of the nervous system and the production of the calming neurotransmitter GABA. The third cluster involves the heart and the nervous system. Palpitations, a fluttering or racing sensation in the chest, can be a sign of magnesium imbalance, along with anxiety, irritability, and a feeling of being on edge that has no obvious cause. The fourth cluster is blood pressure and blood sugar. Magnesium deficiency is associated with higher blood pressure and poorer blood sugar control, and since hypertension and prediabetes are so common after 50, the connection is directly relevant. And finally, headaches and migraines are more common in people with low magnesium. Now, an important point. Every one of these symptoms has many possible causes, and magnesium is not a magic cure for any of them. But when several of these signs cluster together, and when your diet has been low in magnesium-rich foods for years, it is reasonable to ask whether magnesium is part of the picture. So what does the research actually show? This is where the picture gets genuinely interesting, because magnesium is one of the most studied minerals in medicine, and the evidence base keeps growing. For blood pressure, multiple meta-analyses, which are studies that combine the results of many individual trials, have found that magnesium supplementation produces a small but consistent reduction in blood pressure, particularly in people who start with elevated readings. The effect is not dramatic, a few points at best, which is why magnesium is best understood as a supportive factor rather than a standalone treatment. But when you consider that most people with high blood pressure are already taking medications, adding a nutrient correction is a low-risk way to support the whole system. For blood sugar, the research points in the same direction. Magnesium plays a direct role in insulin signaling, and several studies have found that people with higher magnesium intake have a lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes, and that supplementation improves insulin sensitivity in people who are deficient. Again, the effect is modest, but it compounds with everything else. For sleep, the evidence is more mixed, and honesty matters here. Some trials in older adults have found that magnesium supplementation improves sleep quality, sleep efficiency, and time to fall asleep, while other trials have shown little effect in people who are not deficient. The most sensible reading of the literature is that magnesium helps sleep when deficiency is part of the problem, and does little when levels are already adequate, which is another reason to look at your diet and your symptoms rather than assuming a pill will fix everything. For muscle cramps, the evidence is similarly honest. Nighttime leg cramps are one of the most common complaints after 50, and magnesium is the supplement most people reach for. But large trials have produced mixed results, with some showing benefit and others showing none. The nuance is that cramps have many causes, from dehydration to electrolyte balance to nerve compression, and magnesium only addresses the ones driven by magnesium imbalance. And for migraines, several randomized trials have found that magnesium supplementation reduces the frequency of migraine attacks, and some headache specialists recommend it as a preventive option for people who cannot tolerate prescription medications. The overall picture is consistent. Magnesium is not a dramatic drug-like intervention. It is a correction of a common deficiency, and its benefits show up most clearly in people who actually need the correction. That is exactly why the form and dose mistakes we are about to discuss matter so much. Because if you take the wrong form, you never actually correct the deficiency, and then you conclude the whole mineral is useless. And that brings us to the mistake. You decide to do something about it, you go to the store, and you buy the wrong thing. Here is what you need to know about magnesium forms, because this is where the supplement industry makes its money and where most people go wrong. Magnesium oxide is the cheapest and most common form, the one in most discount bottles and many combination products. It is poorly absorbed, and the portion that is not absorbed pulls water into the bowel, which is why its main effect is often laxative rather than therapeutic. If you have been taking magnesium oxide and felt nothing, that is not a failed experiment, that is an absorption problem. Magnesium citrate is magnesium bound to citric acid. It is better absorbed than oxide, it is inexpensive, and it is the form most often recommended for constipation, because the unabsorbed portion has a mild laxative effect. For general deficiency correction, citrate is a reasonable and affordable choice, though the laxative effect means the dose needs to be titrated carefully. Magnesium glycinate is magnesium bound to the amino acid glycine. This is the form most often recommended for sleep, relaxation, and muscle relaxation. Because glycine itself has calming effects on the nervous system, and glycinate tends to be very gentle on the stomach. If your goal is better sleep, calmer nerves, and fewer cramps, glycinate is the form most research and most practitioners point to. Magnesium malate is bound to malic acid, which is involved in the body's energy cycle, and it is the form often recommended for people with fatigue and muscle pain, though the evidence behind those specific claims is more limited. And magnesium threonate is a newer form designed to cross the blood-brain barrier, marketed for cognitive function, with promising early research, but a much higher price tag. The takeaway is simple. The form matters enormously, and the cheapest bottle on the shelf is usually the worst choice for absorption. The second part of the mistake is dosage and timing. Many people take too little magnesium to make any difference, or they take it at the wrong time. The recommended daily allowance for men over 50 is 420 milligrams, and for women over 50, it is 320 milligrams, and that is from all sources combined, food plus supplements. Most people taking a magnesium supplement take a single small pill that provides far less than the gap between their diet and the target, and then wonder why nothing changes. If you are supplementing, the typical effective range in the research is 200 to 400 milligrams of elemental magnesium per day, and the key phrase there is elemental magnesium. Different forms contain different amounts of actual magnesium per pill. Oxide pills may contain a lot of magnesium by weight, but deliver little of it to your body. Glycinate pills contain less magnesium per pill, but deliver much more of it. Read the label for elemental magnesium, not total pill weight, and aim for the dose that brings your total intake toward the recommended range. Timing also matters. Magnesium is best absorbed in smaller doses spread through the day or taken with a meal, and many people find that taking it in the evening supports sleep, while splitting the dose morning and evening improves tolerance. Taking a huge single dose on an empty stomach is a recipe for digestive upset and poor absorption. And one more common error, taking magnesium and calcium at the same time in high doses because the two minerals can compete for absorption. If you take both, separating them by a few hours is the smarter approach. Now the counterintuitive part, and it is an important safety one. Because magnesium is involved in so many systems, the instinct is to think more is better. It is not. Too much magnesium causes diarrhea and cramping, which is uncomfortable but not dangerous in healthy people. The real danger is in people with kidney disease, because damaged kidneys cannot excrete excess magnesium, and levels can climb to dangerous heights, affecting heart rhythm seriously. If you have chronic kidney disease, which we now know is far more common than people realize, you should never start a magnesium supplement without discussing it with your doctor first. Magnesium also interacts with certain medications, including some antibiotics, some blood pressure medications, and bisphosphonates used for bone health, and the timing of those doses matters. This is one of those places where the responsible approach is to talk to your doctor or pharmacist about your specific situation, especially if you take daily medications. The good news is that for healthy people, the body is remarkably good at excreting excess magnesium through the kidneys, which is why deficiency is so much more common than toxicity. The risk is not in taking magnesium. The risk is in taking it blindly. So let me bring this into a practical plan. The first step is food, because food should always be the foundation. Add magnesium-rich foods to your daily routine. Pumpkin seeds, which are one of the most concentrated sources in nature, almonds and cashews, spinach and Swiss chard, black beans and lentils, and even dark chocolate, which makes this one of the more pleasant dietary changes in all of medicine. Just a small handful of pumpkin seeds or almonds each day, plus a serving of leafy greens, moves most people a meaningful distance toward the recommended intake. The second step is to look at your medications. If you take a proton pump inhibitor for reflux, or a water pill for blood pressure, or both, talk to your doctor about whether your magnesium status should be checked, because these are the medications most likely to create a hidden deficiency. And pay attention to the other risk factors that stack on top of each other. Type 2 diabetes, because high blood sugar increases magnesium loss through the kidneys. Heavy alcohol use, because alcohol increases urinary excretion of magnesium. Chronic stress, because stress hormones increase magnesium loss. And digestive conditions like celiac disease or inflammatory bowel disease, because they impair absorption. If you fall into one of these groups, your odds of being low are substantially higher than the average person, and that is worth knowing before you dismiss the symptoms as normal aging. The third step is choosing a supplement wisely if you decide you need one. If your goal is sleep and relaxation, magnesium glycinate is the form most often recommended, taken in the evening. If your goal is general deficiency correction on a budget, magnesium citrate is a solid choice. If your goal is digestive regularity, citrate can help there too. Avoid magnesium oxide unless you specifically want a laxative effect, and read the label for elemental magnesium, aiming for 200 to 400 milligrams per day from supplements, adjusted to your diet and your tolerance. Start on the lower end, increase gradually, and if you develop loose stools, back the dose down. The fourth step is patience. Magnesium is not a drug that acts in hours. It is a nutrient that rebuilds tissue levels over weeks and months. Most people who correct a true deficiency notice improvements in sleep, cramping, and tension over the course of 4 to 8 weeks, not overnight. And that timeline is completely normal. And the fifth step is perspective. Magnesium is not a miracle cure, and it will not fix a poor diet, a sedentary life, or chronic stress. But it is one of the most common, most overlooked, and most easily correctable nutrient gaps in adults over 50. When you fix a true deficiency, the body responds, sometimes dramatically, because you are finally giving it the fuel it was missing. The mistake was never the mineral. It was the wrong form, the wrong dose, the wrong timing, and the wrong expectation. Get those 4 things right, and magnesium becomes exactly what it should be: a quiet, foundational support for your heart, your muscles, your sleep, and your energy, working in the background of every single cell